then, thank you everyone for attending today. I'm just going to go through the agenda. So the plan today is we're going to start at now. I'm just going to do a quick introduction about CSG and Copilot. That will bring us on then to our guest speaker, Chris Williams from Microsoft, who is going to go through the Copilot and the features and benefits. That will leave us up until about 11:45, where we will have questions and answers, and hopefully finish around 12 o'clock for the event to end. My name is Ricky. I am the Regional Sales Director at CSG. I am also joined by our guest speaker, Chris Williams from Microsoft, and also Eve, who is our Marketing Manager for CSG. So what is Copilot? We've all been hearing a lot about Microsoft Copilot over the last 12 months. And today, Chris will go through in more detail the benefits Copilot will bring to your business, and also show you a few demonstrations of the Copilot in action. Copilot also uses generative AI, which is trained to generate text, images, and other types of content. These systems learn patterns and structures from the input training data and then create new data with similar characteristics. So just to give you an idea from the slide on the screen on how generative AI has been used over the years, if you take a look at the slide, you can see how mobile phones has taken almost 16 years to reach about 100 million users, and Facebook has only taken 4.5 years. Then came along GPT, which we have all seen and probably used, but this platform has only taken 2 months to reach 100 million users. So you can see how generative AI is playing a very big part in our lives. I just wanted to take this opportunity to let you know who is CSG and what we are able to provide you. CSG has been trading since 1985, with our head office based in Bridgend and other offices in Bristol and Exeter area. We also have a turnover of over 4.5 million. We provide our customers with a vast range of services, from managed IT support, backups and disaster recovery services, cyber essentials, cloud IP phone systems, and also marketing leading cyber security products from Sophos. Also Microsoft 365, including Microsoft Azure and all IT related hardware. We have also supported and managed a lot of our customers to make the move to the cloud, and also shown how to get the most out of your Microsoft product. We also offer different training options for the Copilot. These range from Copilot Essentials. This will give you an overview of the day-to-day tasks Copilot will assist you with. We also do Copilot Deep Dive, more of a hands-on training and a gateway to mastering Copilot and how it will elevate your output. We also offer technical overview. This course includes a mix of instruction, demonstration, and hands-on practice, allowing you to explore the technical aspects of Copilot. We also offer customer workshops, promoting workshops provides delegates with an opportunity to explore possibilities of Copilot, promoting a series of demonstrations and guided exercises. And finally, we also offer Copilot Consulting. Our technical consultants are experts in their fields and provide a day consultancy, can give you valuable insights into how to manage a host of issues, offering guidance and recommendations in areas that you're not certain about. If you require any of these, please reach out to CSG for further information. This is just a quick slide on our certifications. We are also Microsoft Solutions Designation for Modern Work and also Azure Infrastructure. as well as a range of other elements of the Microsoft partnership we have with them. Also, we're a Sophos Gold partner, including Datto as well as Gold members, and Hewlett Packard as well, business partner as well, and a range of other certifications. I would now like to hand it over to Chris, who is the Modern Workplace Channel Manager at Microsoft. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box and we will try to answer as many possible at the end. So thank you, Chris. Over to you. I don't think we've got sound. Sorry, Chris.
Have I made the faux pas? The guy from Microsoft can't figure out how to unmute on Teams. That's never going to be forgotten. So thank you, Ricky. Yeah, my name is Chris Williams. I'm a channel manager at Microsoft for Modern Work and Security. I understand the business value of our modern work and security solutions, one of which I've talked a lot with customers and partners about over the last 8 or 9 months has been Copilot for Microsoft 365. And that's what I'm going to talk through today, hoping giving a good grounding on what the capabilities of the solution looks like, what the solution is, how to prepare for Copilot, how to make sure that you can drive successful adoption. So I'm going to cover a raft of different areas. So the first thing, before I talk about the technology, I want to talk about a business challenge actually. Our mission as a business, as an organization, is to empower every person, every organization on the planet to achieve more. One of the ways in which we understand what the sentiments and what the challenges are that customers are facing is through something we do called the Work Trend Index. The AKA link is on the screen. These are publicly available. And last year we completed 2 studies that I'm going to reference in a moment. And these are global studies across various different levels in the business. So looking at leadership within a business, but also looking at individuals on the sales floor, individuals on the front line that don't have a responsibility of managing people, etc. In these circumstances, we're conducting wide surveys and studies. But last year we completed 2 studies. One of them was called Will AI Fix Work? And the other one was called what can those early adopters teach us about generative AI? Now, Will AI Fix Work came out in around about May, after we'd announced Copilot for Microsoft 365 to the world. And there was a concept that came out from that study. This concept was called digital debt. Now, I'm kind of hoping that this doesn't resonate with you, but with pretty much most of the customers that I engage with, it does resonate with them. I walked away from reading that study. I think it was a Monday morning following. I rock up to my laptop in the morning. My Teams messages are clear. My Outlook is clear. I'm back to back pretty much for most of the day. I've got Teams meetings in with the odd 10, 15 minutes here and there and breaks. But in my first meeting, I've got an hour's meeting with my leader. I walk away from that meeting because I'd focused on the conversation, as you do with customers and colleagues and partners. You focus on the conversation you're having. But I walked away from that meeting and I had 13 separate people message me on Teams and I had over 10 emails in my inbox. 64% of people, they say they struggle with finding the time and energy to get their work done. This is one of the contributors, that influx of digital information burdening us with a requirement to make sure that we understand it and act upon it. The other challenge there that people face is finding information. 62% of people say they spend too much time during the day finding information. If somebody sent you a question, regardless as to how well versed you are in your role, sometimes you need to go and find something. And again, regardless as to how well designed the information architecture is in the business, sometimes that can take time. And what leaders talked about here was a cost on innovation and breakthrough ideas. People are spending too much time in the mundane areas of work. They're necessary, but they're spending too much time in those mundane areas of work, and it's costing innovation and breakthrough ideas. So that's the concept of digital debt. As I say, I kind of hope you don't suffer from it, but in reality, I think a lot of the customers that I speak to actually do suffer from it. And that's one of the things that Copilot looks to address. Now, on the flip side, I mentioned the other study that we completed. Following the announcement of Copilot for Microsoft 365 in March last year, we embarked on a private preview with about 600 to 700 customers globally. And on the right-hand side, you can see some of the findings. There's more information on the findings in the study that you can go away and look at more. And some of the salient points to pull out here is regards to what people were finding as to when they were working with Copilot alongside them, their new AI assistant. 70% of people said it made them more productive. And I think probably even more encouraging was 68% of people said that it improved the quality of the work. Not only did they get things done faster, but actually the quality of the output was improving. And bearing in mind that these individuals might have only had access to the technology for around about 4, 5, maybe 6 months at the point in time of completing the study, just shy of 80% of people said that they didn't want to give Copilot up. I remember seeing a LinkedIn post before Christmas where somebody was referring to this study. A partner was referring to this study, and what they said they would fight somebody in the car park if they tried to take Copilot off them now, having used it. But that's not 100%. And some of the challenges we see here from what customers have talked about is the need for new skills, understanding as to when is the right time and how do you get Copilot to help you in your tasks? What's the process you might go through? What does prompting look like? If you've used ChatGPT, you'll have experienced prompting and how you instruct ChatGPT to help you with the challenge that you're presenting it with and bringing you the information back you require. So this is the challenge we see a lot of customers facing. Copilot for Microsoft 365 helps to address this, plus other challenges as well. Now, the age of Copilots has arrived. There's an S on the end there. It's a plural for a reason. There are multiple Copilots available for customers for different use cases. There's a Copilot for security. There's Copilot for Power Platform. We're talking about Copilot for Microsoft 365 today. But we announced to the world in the middle of January, 15th of January, 9 p.m. on a Monday evening, that Copilot for Microsoft 365 was available for businesses of all sizes. Prior to that, there was a minimum commitment of 300 licenses, and it was only available in certain licensing channels. Whereas as from that date, it was available from a minimum of 1 license. A customer could order 1 license for their organization. We've got some recommendations around that I'll touch on a little bit later. But as I say, the age of Copilots has truly arrived. For anybody that has not seen what Copilot for Microsoft 365 looks like, here is a short jazzy marketing video to help with a little bit of inspiration, but we'll take a look.
Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto, yeah. Brand new bands for the auto, oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Vault full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy. Boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it out big. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's it? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To-do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
So that was Copilot for Microsoft 365 in short. We're going to look at a few use cases in a little bit to look at it in specific applications. But Copilot for Microsoft 365, what sits behind that solution, that capability? How does it unlock productivity and unleash your creativity? Well, it's all done through natural language. Much the same as referring to ChatGPT earlier, much referring to the same as where you, through natural language, you tell ChatGPT what it is that you want it to help you with. You interact in the same way with Copilot, you use natural language. Now, the elements that you see on the screen, large language models, the Microsoft Graph, your Microsoft 365 applications, and the internet, some of the components that allow Copilot to go to work. Now, one of the things I think I'll start with by saying what it's not. So large language models, LLMs, because we abbreviate absolutely everything. ChatGPT is a large language model. What Copilot is not, we are not connecting your organizational data to ChatGPT. We have exclusive instances of large language models, the GPT engines hosted in our Azure OpenAI service. But OpenAI don't actually have access to those models. They're exclusively hosted in our Azure data centers. But in terms of your Microsoft Graph, that's information that already exists within your organization that you allow Copilot to reason over, but then allowing it to knit the information together. And one of the things that actually isn't on the screen is something called the semantic index. Now, the semantic index is maybe a little bit of the secret sauce as to how Copilot can go about its work. And broadly, what that looks like is works a little bit like the brain. If I ask you to think about an elephant and picture an elephant, you'll contextualize and you'll think maybe the elephant's in Africa, it might be in a zoo, it'll be large unless it's a baby, it'll potentially have a trunk, maybe a little bit of mud on it, but you'll have all these contextual points. What the semantic index does is it does that with data. So it associates data, relationships between data, relationships between words. So if, say, for example, you were searching for the monthly sales report, it understands that the monthly sales report is an Excel file, understands that Katie produces that Excel file. Katie works in finance and she produces it on the final Friday of every month, and it's hosted in this location, allowing Copilot to bring the information back to the right users, because we're going to cover security in this one as well, but bring the information back based on the prompt that you give it. And Copilot finds a home in the Microsoft 365 applications, but it can pull information from the internet as well. But again, the administrator of your business that manages your IT environment has control over that. You can switch it off so that it can't reason over information from the internet. Let's say, for example, you've got a new product you're looking to launch and you want it to give you a SWOT analysis versus competitor products. You might not have that in your business, but it might exist on the internet. If Copilot was allowed to access the internet, it could reason and bring that information in for you. But again, you have control over that. And in terms of the applications, so within Microsoft 365, you have various different applications, but Copilot finds a home in these applications and more actually now. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and a bonus point for anyone that knows the logo on the right-hand side, that is Loop Components, a fairly new member of the application family in the grand scheme of things. But Copilot finds a home in these applications. You don't have to go into a new application to engage with Copilot in Word. You can engage with Copilot in Word. But we also can access now Copilot in Whiteboard and Copilot in Microsoft Forms. It's a continual expansion of the offering based on the applications that exist as a part of Microsoft 365. We're going to take a look at a few of the applications in some use cases shortly. Now, in terms of successful adoption and driving a review or a proof of concept of Copilot for Microsoft 365, it's kind of three pillars that we look at and we talk about here typically. Security foundation, how are we ensuring that the business is set up with a zero trust framework? How are we making sure that there's a good data governance in place? We're going to talk about that in a moment. AI at work. Who are the users in my business that would benefit from Copilot for Microsoft 365? And then the culture shift. This is a technology that they won't have used before. They might have engaged with ChatGPT, but you engage in different ways. So how do we make sure that if we're investing money in Copilot for Microsoft 365, we're gaining the output within the timeframes that we want fairly quickly? We get a speed to value. So security. Let's start off with security. Now, Copilot for Microsoft 365 respects the principles of the organization. It's built on our comprehensive approach to security for SMBs and enterprise, but it understands security, compliance, and privacy principles already in place in the business. I'm going to elaborate on that in a moment. But responsible AI is also built into the solution. There are guardrails put in place. People can't ask for Copilot's help to try and cook up a conspiracy theory, but also how you engage in the applications. In the use case I'll show later on, you'll see that when you engage in Outlook, it opens up a small sandbox in which you engage with Copilot. And before being able to send an email, you have to approve that, yeah, I want to keep what it is that Copilot's generated for me, or I want to bin it off, I want to amend it. But you have to engage with that information. It's not automation. Copilot is your AI assistant. It's your Copilot, not autopilot, to help you get to the outcome faster. But let's talk a little bit more deeper about security and what I mean by respecting the principles. Now, There might be some technical on the call, there might not be some technical on the call. I am not technical in nature, so hopefully I'm not going to go into too much technical. But when I talk about Copilot being able to understand and respect the principles that already exist, let's say you have SharePoints in your business, and half of your business have got access to a specific SharePoint and the rest of them don't. For the individuals that have access to that SharePoint, if they were asking Copilot a question about information that's hosted in a document in that SharePoint, Copilot will return a response, because it will check the permissions on that SharePoint, it will check the controls in place, and it will only provide a response to the individuals that have access to view that information. In the circumstance you don't have access, Copilot won't even confirm that the information exists and you just don't have access. It will say something along the lines of, I'm sorry, I couldn't find anything relating to that. Now, in some circumstances, you've got your SharePoint controls in place. Somebody takes a file out of that location. They want to share it with John. John has access to another SharePoint, so they move it to another location. But that SharePoint is openly available for the business. Now, if Copilot's given access to that SharePoint, because you can restrict SharePoint access in Copilot, what it will start to do is it will start to make that information in the document available for everybody, unless information protection at the document level is activated. And then again, what you have is a defined list of individuals that are privy to that information. You'll have seen it at the top of a Word or a PowerPoint document where it has a classifier where it says highly confidential or general. Copilot understands and checks the principles in place before returning an answer back to the individual. So whether it's SharePoint controls or whether it's information protection at the document level, Copilot understands this and respects this. This is one of the things that we talk about with customers and partners typically, about making sure that you're ready for Copilot. We are introducing new capabilities in April where you can restrict enterprise-wide search, business-wide search. So that actually in that circumstance, you can say to Copilot, don't want you to look at these SharePoints, I only want you to look at these 2 SharePoints. We're happy with the information in there. We're going to go on a data governance journey to make sure that we're happy with the rest of them. And in that circumstance, Copilot will only index the SharePoints you give it access to. At the moment, it's a reverse of that. You tell Copilot which ones you don't want it to access. But the new feature that's coming in is called restricted SharePoint search. But that, as I say, is due to come in April. The other thing to think about here as well is, if we think about data governance, it's also data retention. What data exists within your organization? Because if you give Copilot access to it, it can reason over that information and provide answers back. Do you have policies that are out of date that really don't need to be retained in those SharePoints? That would then give conflicting or confusing information back to an employee should they ask Copilot for an answer to a question. It's not only data governance, but also data retention is important to consider. And customer data protection is also ensured in this circumstance. Your data is your data. We do not use organizational data to train the large language models. The large language models have already been trained, and we will input new large language models as new iterations come to life, such as Turbo, GPT Turbo. But the information within your business is not used to train the large language model. And data processing and residency abides with the same agreements that already exist in your Microsoft 365 agreement. So if you're a UK customer, your calls to a large language model, that exclusive instance that I talked about, will be aimed at a UK data center hosted large language model. So there's some important considerations to make around security and compliance. But as I say, there are controls that you can put in place to make sure that Copilot's only reasoning over the information that you want it to, if you need to go on a data governance journey. We talk about AI at work. Now, Copilot for Microsoft 365 has the capability to empower people in varying different roles in the business. There are an array of different roles that you see on the screen: HR, marketing, sales, customer service, finance, and data and IT pros. And of course, in different businesses, what somebody does in a sales-based role might be different for one business to another. Processes all look different, etc. But there is so much capability within Copilot, it has the opportunity to support pretty much everybody. If I think about the typical scenario I talk about quite regularly, my darling wife is the HR and employee relations manager for one of the largest ports in the UK. and I think it was around about June or July last year. She was working from home and she called me over and she asked for some help. And what she asked me was, she was like, I'm creating a PowerPoint. How do I get it so that I can join the boxes up and I create like a process flow, so that if in this circumstance you do this, in this circumstance you do this. So I showed her how you do it, and this is what you need to do. I was like, what are you trying to do? And she said, well, we're introducing a new policy at the port. And what I want to do is I'm creating a training document that the managers can then train the employees, the port employees, on what that new process looks like. We've obviously got the policy document. It's here, it's in a Word document, but I need to create a training presentation. That took her hours. And then about a week later, I don't know why I did it, but I did it. I showed her the video because I didn't have Copilot at the time, but I showed her the video of how you can, in PowerPoint, point Copilot at a Word document in PowerPoint and have it build you a presentation based on that Word document. Would it have completed it 100%, so that's exactly what she wanted? The answer to that is invariably probably no, but it would have got her probably around about 80% of the way there, saving her an awful lot of time. She wasn't very happy with me for a short period. But that's just one example for one specific use case, one scenario, in one role. There are so many different capabilities. But let's take a look at a few different use cases. So in this circumstance, we're going to be looking at emails, and probably a scenario that I think most people might be familiar with. You receive an email chain. In this circumstance, we're looking at a marketing team have been discussing a grand opening event for a new store. And typically with that long email chain, if it's the first time you're seeing it and you're being asked to make a decision on something, you need to scroll through and try and read through that. Even more difficult on a mobile. Copilot can do this on a mobile as well. But hitting summary by Copilot, it allows me to make sure that I've got the key pertinent information as to what has happened and who has discussed what. So we'll now look at drafting a response to that. So I understand there's been some ideas contributed, but I've got the ability to make my tone casual, formal, short, long. We've got a new feature coming in around the next couple of months, which is sound like me. So it will sound a little bit more like you, how you sign off emails, how you start emails, the kind of words you use. But one of the things I want to do here is I want to thank the team for their input and their effort, because there's obviously been some effort that's gone into this. But I want to suggest that we go with the social campaign. Now, Copilot will go to work and give me my first draft, and see what it is that Copilot comes up with in the first circumstance, helping me with maybe that blank page anxiety if we're wanting to think about, right, okay, what's the right word to reply this, start this response. But one of the things you'll see here, Copilot has picked up on a word that I used in my prompt. I used the word individually, and it's done exactly that. It's taken me literally. So it's provided a response thanking everybody for their efforts and their input individually, referencing what it is that they contributed to the change so far. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to change that. I've gone back into the prompt, removing the word individually, allowing Copilot maybe to provide a more broad response. But again, what we can see here, I've got the ability to now review what the output looks like. I'm actually broadly probably more happy with this. I can discard it, I can regenerate it, but I'm going to keep it. And actually now what I've got is I've got my first draft. I think the only thing that I probably need to do in circumstance here is make sure that I'm happy with the language, and maybe change how I sign off my email, but saving me time in drafting up this email. And actually the point around individually I typically throw in on purpose, because as I talked earlier about needing new skills to understand what's the right way to prompt Copilot, ensuring that the input will gain you the output that you're looking for, being as specific as you need to be with Copilot. Now, the next use case we're going to look at, again, probably something that a lot of people are familiar with, Teams meetings. Now, in this circumstance, what we're going to look at is an account team. This is in a demo environment that I recorded, because I don't have any meetings that I'd be allowed to reason over information, but this is a demo environment, so they're made up fictitious names that somebody recorded. But in this circumstance, the team have had a discussion. This is your Copilot. One of the questions I get asked from customers regularly is, when I engage with Copilot, can everybody else see what it is I'm asking Copilot? The answer to that is no. The only time that would happen is if you hit the wrong button and hit chat, because if you hit chat, then ultimately you're putting it in the chat. You're not asking Copilot, you're asking everybody on the call. I've seen that on occasion where people have hit the wrong button. But I'm asking here, Copilot, can you please summarize this meeting in bullet points? I'm giving it a specific. I want the summary and I want it in bullet points. If I gave it a vagary, can you please summarize this meeting? I would get a summary, but actually I might not get it in the format that I want. Now, I attended this meeting fictitiously, but actually you can reason over calls that you've been invited to, even if you haven't attended the meeting. So you can ask Copilot to interrogate the meeting, even if you haven't attended, providing your ID has been invited to that meeting and the minimum transcription has been activated. The meeting doesn't have to be video recorded. As long as transcription has been activated, Copilot can go to work. And Copilot also works during the meeting. So if you're in a meeting and you need Copilot to maybe make some suggestions on questions that could be asked, or how are we doing on our agenda? If the agenda was discussed at the beginning, what have we covered so far? What's left to cover? There are obviously limitless questions you could ask Copilot. But now one of the things that happens in pretty much most meetings, I want to identify what were the actions that were assigned to people during that meeting and who were they assigned to. Copilot understands through the transcript what meetings were assigned and link to the ID of the individual or the name being mentioned in the transcript as to who those actions are assigned to, allowing for accountability. We need to send a summary after this meeting. I've got my summary in bullet points and I've now got my table of actions that everybody needs to go and complete. But I've picked up on a point. If I didn't attend this meeting, somebody's mentioned website outages. Well, I want to know more about the website outages. Previously, what you might have done was watch the meeting back, read the transcript, or try and go and speak to somebody that was attending the meeting. Copilot, you can interrogate, you can ask it questions. Based on the context of that meeting, what was captured within that transcript, it can reason over that information and help you with the answer to your questions and help you see where it was that it was discussed. Who was it that mentioned it and what was it specifically that they talked about? So you can see, actually, this has caused a problem here. There's also the ability in all the apps to be able to get suggestions as to what you can ask Copilot for. But the final thing that we'll look at here is there's an action that's, well, there's multiple actions that have been created, but there's an action that's been created. We need to inform senior leadership about the website outages. We also need to make sure that we've got their support in moving supplier. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Copilot to help me with that. So I'm going to ask it to, one, create me an email draft that I can use, but use context from this meeting to inform that email template. Again, not needing to start from scratch, not needing to jump into Outlook and start thinking, right, okay, what is it that I need to say to the senior leadership team? The context has already been discussed. It's already captured in the transcript. Copilot already has an understanding of it. So Copilot in this circumstance, hopefully, will help us with that output, help us with that email draft that we can take and move forward with. Is it exactly as to how we want it? Possibly, possibly not. But we've got that first draft created so that we can move forward with that action. So here, dear senior leadership, writing to inform you, feedback about what the retailers have talked about, and also asking for the support and the budget required. I've got the ability to take that and move on with what I need to do. As I say, helping people in meetings, but also even if you didn't attend the meeting, allows you really to focus on the conversation, allows you to focus on what it is that you're discussing, not needing to think about the note taking. I mean, how many times it's happened to me in the past where I've had it, where I've asked somebody that, can you just repeat the question you just asked, or I didn't quite catch that. What was that again? With Copilot, you can allow Copilot to take the heavy lifting on the note taking and allow it to summarize, generate those actions to be able to follow up with the individuals attending, saving an awful lot of time. Probably one of the features I hear a lot of positive resonance from customers around. Now, the next use case we're going to look at, what's one thing that every single business, unless you're a sole trader, but every single business needs to do, recruitment. And in this circumstance, I'm recruiting for a new role in my business. People leave, and sometimes you might already have job roles, job posts available because they've left an existing role. But in this circumstance, I've got a new person, new role that we're building in the business called the CPO. I did say that we like to abbreviate everything. The CPO is the Chief Prompt Officer. So again, in this circumstance, what you normally do is you'd be starting from a blank page. There never needs to be that blank page anxiety. I have, through those instructions that I provided Copilot, giving it a goal, giving it context, giving it a source, the Word document of the job description, and also giving it some expectations. I want it to be inviting. Like, I want it to use the right tone. Copilot helps me with my first draft. I've again got the ability to now review it. I can keep it, I can bin it off, I can regenerate, I can make a suggestion. But in this circumstance, actually, I'm quite okay with what it's generated at the moment. Might be some bits I need to tweak. And also when you're in a document, so that we have just created this, but this works exactly the same as if you're in a live document that's already been created for months before. You can visualize as a table if you select a paragraph or a bank of text. I don't think we should do that in this circumstance, but I'm going to ask Copilot to recommend some rewrites. So here we're looking at a job post, but somebody in a marketing role that's looking at creating some new copy for a blog post, or a salesperson creating a proposal for a customer. Copilot can help you with 3 possibilities, but allowing you also to change the tone of those particular banks of text, and then replacing or deciding, actually, I'm happy with my first instance. But in all circumstances where you ask Copilot to regenerate and give you a new option, it gives you 3 options that you can review. And when you hit replace, what it will do in this circumstance is it will delete the text that was there, but also now provide you with that text that you've chosen to keep. And the final things that we'll look at in Word, because we were editing with Copilot actually in the document page, you also do have the Copilot Blade. This is where you can be an expert in any document. So one of the things I want to understand from this, and this maybe helps with the semantic index point I was talking about earlier, is does this role have a responsibility for leading people? Now, typically what you might do is you might do a keyword search. You might search for lead, manage, leading people, might search for any one of those. If it's not that specific word in the document, it won't return a response. Whereas actually it says, yes, the Chief Prompt Officer will have the responsibility of leading people. But actually, if we look at the top of the screen here, it actually says managing people. Copilot understands the relationship between leading and managing. You can make the determination as to whether that's accurate in its response, but it's taken you to the location in the document as to where it has come to that conclusion. So if you've got long FAQs, long policy documents, documents with dense information in, makes searching for that information in the document that much simpler. And equally, you might have a need to summarize a long document. You've created a new proposal internally, and I need to create a summary because I want to use that summary to be able to send it out as a pre-read. Copilot can also summarize documents. Not only can you question, it can also help you with new content based on the content that exists. But again, allowing you to go to specific locations to make sure that you're happy with the output. Is that worded in the way that you want it to be worded? Allowing you to search through. But Copilot in Word, various different possibilities. As you say, it continues to make suggestions as to how you can engage in the document. This is just, again, one use case, a specific scenario. There are endless possibilities in this circumstance. And the final one that we're going to look at in terms of a use case is Copilot in Excel. So Copilot in Excel, one of the things that's probably worth calling out is it's currently still in preview. You'll see when we go into the Copilot Blade. But what we've got here in this document is we've got 2 different sets of data. And if I think about Excel, there are more buckets than this, but I typically find you're either a power user or you're a power avoider. Like if somebody says the word pivot table, there's a U-shaped hole in the door. You might come out in a cold sweat. What Copilot in Excel allows for is more of a democratization of capability. It is still in preview. There's a lot more features coming to it. The ability to be able to engage with Python in Excel through natural language. But as I say, there's already quite some capability there, and we'll take a look through some of them. So here what we've got is we've got some information about different products. We've got road bikes in this circumstance, their price, their production cost, different attributes of those bikes. But one of the things I've spotted, I don't have a profit margin. I can't actually see what my profit margin is on these particular products. So I'm asking Copilot, not with great grammar, can you add a column for me that shows my profit margin? So now what Copilot will do is it will go to work. It will understand from my ask, right, what are the formulas that I might need to use? Now I'm okay in Excel. I probably would have been okay to do this myself, but Copilot can do that lifting for me. But for some people, actually, they would have looked at it and thought, right, okay, I'm not sure on how I get it to show me my profit margin. And they might have then picked up a conversation with somebody else, taking the time out of two people's diary to get to that outcome. Whereas actually Copilot has indicated here, what we need to do is we need to take the current price, remove the production cost, and then divide by the current price, and we'll get our profit margin as a percentage. And it explains that calculation. And I've got the ability now to insert that column. So I've inserted the column, it's got me my profit margin. I can now see that I'm making 20% 30%. Oh, okay, that one doesn't look good. Minus 1.65, and actually there's a few minuses in here. So I've got an understanding of my profit margins, but there are some challenges that I can see. So one of the things for any Excel junkies, you don't really need to be an Excel junkie, but for anybody that is fairly proficient in Excel, you might be familiar with, is something called conditional formatting. If you find a cell that is below 10%, I want it to be red, and if you find a cell that's above 10%, I want it to be green. I've asked Copilot to add the color green to exactly those circumstances, above 10%, and make it red if it's below 10%. Now, what you'll notice here is I haven't said conditionally format these cells. I haven't said conditionally format this column. I haven't told it the column number. I've asked it to make the profit margins green if they're above 10% and red if they're below. However, actually what Copilot has done in this circumstance, if we look at the rules, is applied conditional formatting. So again, democratizing that capability. The individual doesn't need to know what the feature is called within Excel in order to get Copilot to help them with it. Now, another thing that I'm aware of in this circumstance, actually, we've been having a conversation with suppliers, and our production costs, we look as if we're going to be able to lower those production costs because we've got a better rate on our bike frames. So I'm going to ask Copilot for a theoretical here. Can you add a column that helps me see the new profit margin if we were to reduce production costs by 10%? What are we going to be looking like in that circumstance? Again, I think I would be relatively okay in executing that action. However, creating that democratization, ensuring that individuals through natural language can start to interrogate the data that they have in front of them, giving us the overview of that formula. I think the key thing to think about here within Excel is currently, when you're engaging with Copilot, it only works when the data is presented in a table. You might have seen a couple of times where I've selected out of the table, it says I need to work in a table. If it finds data that is not in a table format, it will make the recommendation of changing it to a table, but it will only be able to reason over that data when it's in a table currently. And the other thing that I'm going to ask it here is, like, actually now I'm kind of wanting to make sure that I've got my conditional formatting. It hasn't remembered that I've asked it for profit margin previously, and therefore the reasoning I might want it applied to the new profit margin. I still need to tell Copilot that particular piece of information. But again, through natural language, I've got the ability to be able to create that instruction. So I'm not necessarily in the green on these products still, but actually in a lot of circumstances, I'm looking better. I'm starting to turn a profit, but there are still a few challenges that I think I need to address. Now, the other things to think about is with regards to just data insights. So we're going to look at data insights in a couple of different ways. We're going to look at it by asking a specific question now. So can you tell me which bike model has the highest profit margin? Again, the relatively lengthy list of different products. Something that Copilot can help with that lifting on to be able to return the information. And actually, in this circumstance, it's not any one particular product. There is a number of products. But what it's done is it's created a table for me, showing me the products that have the largest profit margin. And actually, there's an array of them. I have the ability to add that to a new sheet. I'm not going to do that in this circumstance, but I want to fact check what it is that Copilot stated. Have I got a range of different bikes that match these particular model numbers that indicate that there's a 36% profit margin? So I'm asking Copilot to sort that profit margin column. And yes, that looks accurate. I've got a raft of different products that are at that 36% profit margin. Now, the other point around insights that I mentioned, sometimes you don't necessarily have the insights available, or you can't think about what it is that you want it to tell you. You can ask Copilot to just show you data insights. What can it pull from the information that it's got in front of it? And we're looking at some customer sales based information here. Typically, I find has worked better in my scenario than looking at an inventory of different specifications. But what we can see in this circumstance, it's created me a graph. I can add it to a sheet, but I can see that actually our sale price has increased over time. That's promising. Might need to do a bit more diving as to understand why. But one of the things you also can do is just add all insights to grid. Allow Copilot to go to work and present you with multiple different insights. You'll see the screen flickering about a little bit as Copilot's beavering away. What it's done here is it's created me a new tab with various different tables linked to pivots, helping with insights relating to that data. France leading the way on units sold. Being in the UK, I might need to pull my finger out and figure out why France are ahead. Discount band medium has a noticeably higher sale price, so we're giving more discount than if it was low, but actually our sales price is greater. What do we need to think about there? Frequency of units sold. Typically when we're selling units, we're selling between 6 to 11 units. How do I up that ante? Is it something relating to discount banding? Is discount banding being used as medium in more circumstances in that 6 to 11 bracket? But it helps me with these insights so that I can then move forward with internal decision making, take this information into a PowerPoint, into an email, into an internal meeting to help drive the conversation forward. As I mentioned, democratizing capability through natural language in the Excel application. So those are a few different use cases. We would be here for an awful lot longer than the time that we've got today, should we to go through more. But as Ricky talked about, if there's more inquiry here, by all means reach out to the CSG team. They've got me on speed dial so that I'm happy to go through demonstrations and help understand a little bit more. But we think about culture shift before we wrap up. So this is a whole new way of working that involves both software and culture. I mentioned it earlier, the ability to understand as to how to engage with it effectively. And what are the common things that we hear from customers is who do we give those first Copilot licenses to? Kind of touch on that in a moment. How do I get employees running up and running quickly? As I said, this is a significant investment. This is an additional cost to the licensing, and we'll touch on that in a second. And what are the ways in which to measure impact? How do we make sure that we're understanding as to how people are utilizing Copilot and the output that we're finding? So we talk about a three-phased approach here. Readiness, concentrate licenses into a few key teams. You know, who are the individuals in what teams that would benefit from the capability across the spectrum of applications Copilot finds a home in, allowing for that investigation and stress testing, if you will, as to how it works within your business processes. And start with quick wins, and talked about earlier with regards to those individuals, you know, HR, finance, sales, marketing, those departments that we talk to. What are some of the things that are currently being done that map very easily to what Copilot's capable of doing? And do you have an AI strategy in place? So who is looking after how the business, not just with Copilot, but broadly, is thinking about using AI to move the business forward? Does that council exist? And if it doesn't, the consideration about creation of that. If we think about driving adoption. If you're going to implement a proof of concept and you've got those individuals, creating a community in which those individuals can engage and flourish. So here we've got a collection of individuals across various different departments. Do they have meetings set up so that they can discuss and talk about what they're getting Copilot to help them with? They are those champions, those early adopters, giving them the forum in which to have a discussion. For you to also understand as the outputs is always important. And it helps manage expectations of the organization. One thing I think I've seen very regularly is when people realize in the business that somebody else has got Copilot and they don't, the hand goes up, can I pretty please have Copilot? Whereas actually, if there's transparency that we're going through a process of reviewing Copilot suit for our business, and we're going through a proof of concept, here are the learnings we're having so far, and regular updates come out, helps people understand as to how it's empowering, but also what the roadmap looks like. And communicating those best practices, like what is it, as I say, we're winning with in Copilot, and what is it not doing? Because as I say, Copilot will not do absolutely everything for everybody. It's not the autopilot, it's the Copilot. And on the measurement, quantifying impact, we give customers access to a Copilot dashboard. So you've got the ability to view and understand as to how Copilot's being engaged with. I've got a screenshot of that in a moment. I don't have a demonstration video or anything like that of it, unfortunately, but you get access to a Copilot dashboard. But also the measurement of the individuals. What does the sentiment look like within the individuals that are using it? Is it helping create more time in their day so that they can focus on maybe projects or tasks that have previously been put on the back burner because they haven't had the time? If they've previously not had enough time in their day to take their lunch, is it increasing and benefiting their work-life balance? And celebrate those successes. And in terms of the dashboard, the image that you can see on the screen, you'll have the ability to view down an actions per user or user count as to, are people using Copilot in Word to rewrite documents or draft a new document or summarize documents? Are they using it to create, or are they using it to reason over the information and just provide them with answers based on that information? But at the top, you'll also see there are multiple tabs here. So impact, what is the perception of time being saved on the typical time it takes for somebody to complete the tasks that we're seeing? What's the sentiment through Viva, being able to send out surveys to colleagues utilizing Copilot to help understand as to what it is that they're feeling that Copilot's providing them. So today, that's the approach we recommend customers consider. More information is available at our adoption hub, which will be shared following this. But what are the things that you can do to get started? I mentioned a few moments ago in terms of the investment for Copilot for Microsoft 365. It's an add-on. Copilot for Microsoft 365 can be attached to the licenses that you see on the screen for commercial customers. So Business Standard, Business Premium, Microsoft 365, E3 and E5, Office 365, E3 and E5. But it's also coming to a raft of other SKUs as well in the coming weeks. And education customers for faculty can also get access. And the cost associated is $30 per user per month, billed annually, which equates to, I think, around about £300 per user per year. But again, CSG, after this webinar, can speak to you more about that. Now, one of the things I've actually not covered today, within these licenses, you actually get access to Copilot for the web. And that is the ability to securely, your data isn't monitored, your data isn't remembered, we don't use it to train the model, but securely engage with an LLM, a generative AI engine, and reason over information on the internet. And that's included at no additional cost in these licenses, and actually can be switched on fairly quickly. So that's something that could be started today as you're thinking about potentially embarking on a Copilot journey. Understanding file permissions and data loss prevention policies. What does the data look like currently? How are we best to start with Copilot? Do we need to say to Copilot, we don't want you to index our information yet because we're going to go on a data governance journey? Or actually, we're happy with our data governance. We've got a zero trust framework. Only the right people have access to the right information, and we're happy with the retention of the information we've got. Copilot can reason over the information. Understanding it so that you set Copilot up in the way that it reasons over what you want it to. And if you don't have an AI strategy, I talked earlier about how AI is creating a whole new way of working. We have studies and guidance available on our work trend index. And I mentioned the adoption hub for customers that look at embarking on a Copilot journey, or maybe have already started. There are resources available to help understand as to how you drive adoption within your business. Again, this information, these are hyperlinks. This information will be shared post-webinar so that people can engage, and the CSG team will be happy to help. So that brings me to the end of my part.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. That was really insightful to everyone. And please do contact the CSG team at all today. We'll be here to answer any questions. But we have just got a few more minutes for some questions from the audience. So the first one is, who do we give Copilot to in our team? Who should be the first users?
Yeah, it's a good question. If we think about, I talked earlier about who are those roles that are labor intensive in Outlook, in Teams. They might have lots of meetings, lots of emails. They might need to create documents, not necessarily a necessity they create documents, but they've got a heavy workload. But also if we think about technology advocates, communicators, collaborators, I talked about creating that community. Who are the individuals that are going to be very vocal in how Copilot's helping them or not helping them? Those individuals that are going to help you understand as to the success of the proof of concept, where you might need to pivot. So I think understanding technology advocates and their proficiency for collaborating within teams will also be an integral factor.
And how can we get employees up and running quickly?
Yeah, so I think one of the things to think about here, and what we've done internally, is we've run regular training sessions internally, like 45-minute drop-in sessions for people to jump on. Promptathons have been done as well. We've got an internal application that we actually shared the code for on GitHub, where people can upload what prompts they're using and people can vote on those prompts. But as I say, creating the community and the mechanism in which people can, if you're widening that approach, that people can collaborate, but also helping them understand not only the collaboration pieces, what does best practice look like, those internal training sessions.
And today, and today the CSG team will be here for you all day. So if you do want to have a one-on-one session today with a member of our team, please pop an email or a message in the team and I'll set that out for you. So how can we measure the impact as well? And what can we do to avoid oversharing the data? Because I know a lot of data concerns these days for people.
Yeah, so I touched on that quite a bit earlier. I was talking about oversharing the information, making sure that those SharePoint controls or information protection at the document levels in place. The good news is for customers on Microsoft 365 Business Premium, E3, E5, information protection at the document level is included. You don't need to pay for any additional licensing. You just need to make sure that it's switched on and configured in the right way. Again, I don't doubt something that the CSG team can help you with there. So the other thing to think about as well is we're not sure on what our data governance look like at the moment. You have access to assessments. Again, the CSG team can support you with assessments on what your data governance looks like so that you can do some reconnaissance to make sure that you're happy with what that looks like. But yeah, as I say, ensuring that those principles are in place, and if you're actually not sure on what the data governance looks like, moving forward with an assessment. As I say, the CSG team have got access to Microsoft assessments.
Brilliant. And that brings up to 12 o'clock. I can't believe how quickly the hour's flown, but thank you all for joining.
Thank you,
and please
Chris.
do get...
Cool. Thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, thank you. We just had a nice comment as well saying many thanks for so much information and for clearly explaining everything. So thank you for that, Chris. I'm sure a lot of people had a lot of unanswered questions answered in this session. So thank you so much. And please do get in touch with the CSG team so we can help get you started.
Perfect. Enjoy your Fridays. Thank you all.
And happy Friday. Bye, guys.